Satish,
Hey, how's it going?
Satish, thanks for your time.
Oh, thank you. Sorry for the delay.
That's okay. Wonderful to connect with you, Satish.
The same. Thank you so much. I've read so much about your swimming adventures.
Let's talk about Satish today. Satish, you've done several marathons. You've summited several 8,000 meters. You've hiked in some of the beautiful parts of the planet. And you're the first Indian to ski to the South Pole. But here's an important question, okay? Where do you find the best biryani?
I was going to say Hyderabad, but then things have changed. I've been enjoying the Bay Area biryani more than
Really?
the United States.
Whereabouts in the Bay Area?
I'm a huge fan of Pakwan in the city.
Pakwan, okay.
Yeah. So Pakwan and Shalimar have been my constants when I was living in the city.
Okay.
I am now in the East Bay, so in the suburbs.
Okay.
There is a paradise over here, which is not the same as the Indian paradise, but still just
Okay.
as
I kind of agree with you, because I mean, yeah, when I travel back to India, of course, there's some of the traditional flavors which you can't replicate, but for some reason, the food, the restaurant food that we go to, tastes better here than in India. I'm with you. But some of the local cuisines have its own flavor, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that also could be because of the fact that we've been in the US for like so long. They've been used to like eating these foods over here than the original taste of the Indian the biryani, dum biryani. And I've never used to. I don't remember eating any time like a Ulao Char biryani or like a Vijayawada biryani, pulao, and all these things back home, right? Whereas biryani meant goat biryani. That's it, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm not used to these biryanis over here.
Yeah, and also I'm a 1970s kid, and India was a very different country when I left India.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like growing up, there was not a culture or a habit of going to restaurants. We always ate home cooked food, right?
Absolutely.
That's what I remember.
Yeah.
But when I go back to India now, it's like, I can't even relate to the country at times. Yeah.
Same thing. We used to eat very less outside. So whenever we used to eat the biryani.
Right.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Satish, tell me about your inspiration. Tell me about your idol.
Inspiration. So this is how things started, right? It was never a plan to do any of these things that I've done. I would call myself an endurance athlete before I would call myself a mountaineer or a polar athlete, or a polar adventurer. I just started running back in DC because one of my friends, he ran a first. This is 2004 or 5. I just read that he ran a full marathon. Right. And I didn't understand what the meaning of a marathon was. And I still remember sitting in the chair, Googling what is a marathon. And then I was amazed at the distance that he covered. And he wrote a whole debrief about his marathon experience. And then he talked about the mile 18 to mile 26.2 as to how painful that could be, right? Or it was for him. And he talked about the pain cave and a few other things, which I was I wondered if I had it in me to be able to do that, right? So when I talk about my inspirations, he was my first inspiration, as in so this is a friend who lives in DC. His name is Vijay Chitla. He ran a marathon. He ran the Asha marathon back in 2006. So that was my first introduction to someone. And then another friend of mine, Giri. They both ran marathons, so I was very inspired by them, and I started running with them. And then soon after that, I moved to LA, and then I was by myself. I didn't really have a lot of friends in LA, so I decided I'm going to train for a marathon, and ran a marathon. And I got sucked into because my VP operations at that point was a big marathoner. She helped me run my first marathon, and then she made sure that I run with her every Saturday morning. And I was very young, wanted to go party in the on a Friday night, but then just because of who she was and how much care she took of me. And then how much interest she showed in my progress and running, I decided to join with her. So irrespective of like what time I came home, like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, I would meet her at 6 o'clock. Even if I was drunk, I would meet her at 6 o'clock in the morning to like run the distance with her. Whatever distance she was running, I would run it with her. So she became my hero at that point, right? So I found inspiration at like different points. She was at that point, I believe, 55 years of age, and she was still running marathon. I think she probably ran about 25 marathons, and she still run like half marathons and distances. So she became my inspiration. Like she carried forward that after you run the first marathon, I see most people like quitting marathons and like going back to doing smaller distances or like walking away from that sport. But then she fueled that for me for the next few years, right? And so around 2014, I've run like 14 full marathons so far. That's for myself. And so just like how my bosses have like and got me into running marathons, I've started like helping my friends get into half marathons and full marathons. I've run several of them for them to every time they ran a half marathon to begin with, I would fly wherever they are to like help them run that, finish the marathons, right? So that became like a passion project for me. I finished 14 full marathons officially. Unofficially, I've run more than that, obviously. And they also got very expensive. So I stopped running officially now. Around 2011, my mom passed away in 2011. And then I went through like a really horrible stretch, I would say. I was in a very high, I got into a new job. I was working for one of my really good friends. I felt in a good position where I was at. When I thought I was at the very peak, I was running pretty fast at that point. I was running regularly. That's more important. When I thought I was at the very high of my life, that we go through the highs and lows, right? I lost my mom, which was a serious setback for me. For almost like 2.5, 3 years, I struggled to like find motivation to do anything. So around this time, like a friend of mine said, let's go for a hike or a backpacking trip. And then he said it'll be a fun trip. Let's just go have fun. And then he took me to Mount Whitney. I've never been on a hike before. I used to run Hollywood Hills and such, right? So those were like running hills for me. I never understood the point of like hiking, or never did hiking. So the very first time I went on a hike was to Mount Whitney. Had no clue what was happening or what my body would feel at like that altitude, or what altitude even meant, or sleeping in altitude was, and what gear to wear, and what to do. So everything was just brand new, and I kind of enjoyed like being there in the outdoors, and the struggle, the pain cave, and walking out of the pain, able to summit, and then coming back and realizing that we just climbed the tallest peak in lower 48 states, right? It just opened a whole bunch of possibilities for me at that point. There was no inspiration. I thought it was just a one-off event. But then again, I did go back home and Googled how to climb Everest at like 3 o'clock in the morning. After sleeping less than 4 hours the last 48 hours. I watched the video for like 30 minutes and I closed my video, laptop, and said, I'm good with Whitney. Let's just move on from it. Just random encounters. I never thought I would go back into mountaineering because I never had anybody else like leading groups or any of my friends from my friend circle doing any of the things that I wanted to do. I was in San Francisco. I was running on the street, and I happened to I enjoyed just running after somebody. I was by myself, and I saw somebody running, and I chased him for the longest time. And then at the end of it, he was overtaking me, and I was overtaking him. So we kind of had a battle over there, which I kind of enjoyed it. At the end of it, I stopped him and asked him, like, hey, dude, do you run around here? Is it okay if we can run together? He said, yeah, add me on Instagram. And then on Instagram, I noticed that he was climbing Mount Shasta in a week. I said, can I join you? And he said, yeah, sure. And then that's just how it went. Like, we both started off in Shasta. We climbed Shasta, Mount Hood, and then Rainier, and a whole bunch of things. So at that point, for me, he was inspiration. I didn't know any better in the sense, like, this was just the world around like 2014. Instagram and all were coming up, but then it was not as, as big as things are right now, right? So wherever he would go, I would go with him, right? He went to Rainier the year after, and then I followed him after that. He went and climbed Aconcagua, and then Orizaba in Mexico and such. So I was like, okay, so he's educating me on these things, so he became an inspiration, right? So yeah, I found inspiration through various people that I met very randomly, and then yeah, I enjoyed, and one thing led to another thing. And in 2019, I've decided to like climb bigger mountains because I thought I was ready for the next level. And that's just how like Denali happened. And after Denali, while I was climbing Denali, there were a few climbers who came from Everest. So soon after Everest, who said, "You're ready to climb bigger mountains," and so the 8,000-meter stretch happened.
Here is a cool thing. You mentioned marathons started becoming expensive. You quit marathons. You got on to climb mountains.
I know where you're going with this.
Okay, yeah. Tell me about your childhood. Tell me about your parents. Yeah.
Dad, both my parents I would say a lot of the things I do are things that I've learned from them. Both come a very humble background. My dad's an engineer and mom worked at the university in administration. Dad's dad passed away when he was in his high school. My mom got married when she was 18, 19. And she was pregnant with me. So my dad, he was a single breadwinner in the family, and then he finished his studies and he took care of his sister and everything else. So he had a pretty hard childhood. And then, he did well. He was an engineer. And then my mom, she was pregnant with me when she was like 18, 19. I'm talking about like back in the 80s, right? She still like pushed through her studies and education and everything else. As soon as she graduated, she started working with me pregnant and my brother pregnant. And she worked. Initially we needed the money, and then even later on we didn't. Even then she worked hard, and she donated all the money that she's ever made in all her life savings ever. She kind of donated all. So I get a lot of like this endurance. I definitely get it from my mom. My dad has also been into sports quite a bit. He was a long jump champion when he was in his university. So he'll always keep pushing us to try long jump now and then. And then we travel quite a bit extensively, and that's one of the reasons I feel like I get this like exploratory gene from him. He's traveled extensively in India. Okay. And we also as a family would go on like a tours for for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month long. So kind of got exposed to travel and being on the road for longer distances from very young.
Those childhood trips are fantastic, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Beautiful. Tell me about Spandana.
Yeah. So Spandana as a person or Spandana as a project? Yeah. So I'll give you a small background. So my mom, she passed away 2011. She committed suicide. She was going through mental health struggles. Something we all knew that she was struggling with it, but then we also didn't know how to help her. She was going to a doctor, she was taking a medication, but then we also know that that didn't really help her as much as we expected it to. And she struggled with it, she would say that she would commit suicide, but then we never she's been saying that for a while, so we just took it for granted, as in not for granted, as in there's nothing. At that point, we didn't know any better as to how we could help her. And then when she did, we were all surprised that it just came as a shock for us, right? And then I struggled with it for the next decade, and that's how running helped me to cope it a little bit. And when I felt like running didn't help me, mountaineering helped me to cope into a little bit. I was able to release that pain and frustration, or the struggle, or in general, when I would go into the mountains, it would clear my head a little bit, right? So they were helping me, and until the pandemic came. And then every year around the anniversary, my mom's anniversary, I used to be pretty depressed, and I knew that that's something that I had to escape, and I would travel around her anniversary. But then COVID didn't give me the chance. I was locked in in between four walls, so I had to face it, and I struggled my own battles with wanting to commit suicide. I questioned life, I questioned the purpose of my life and such, right? So this was around the time I took help, and that's me when I got educated with mental health, and what the doctors are, how they can help and such. And I was able to come out of it too. I was also working through I had a surgery to my right hand, which is my dominant hand. I had 3 surgeries during the pandemic. That didn't help either. So for me, one of my biggest motivation to come out of it was mountaineering. I want to climb Denali, and at least that was my target, right? when I realize that I have a target, I work. I don't think about other. I don't think about like um, the fact about like suicide and all that kind of thing. I needed a distraction, and my distraction was to climb Denali, right? So that's just how I came out of it. I mean, with the help of doctors and therapy and medication for sure. And but this was all I did this, but then I never like shared my journey with anybody. I mean, it was on. I mean, I've written a few posts on Instagram and then social media about and walking through a phase, right? But didn't really talk about mental health and my struggles. Um, in my progression from Denali, I climbed Aconcagua, and soon after Aconcagua, I climbed Everest and Lhotse, May 2022. And then when I came back down, I was basking in the glory of like me climbing Everest and Lhotse. I was in DC. I was presenting my story at one of the Indian Association, and then I also had a chance to meet Sunil Gavaskar over there. So Sunil Gavaskar was like, he was talking about his organization, or that he raises funds for. And then one of the things he passed on to me was like, you're doing these amazing things, like, make sure you also attach a cost to it. And that's around the same time I was thinking about like, should I continue? Because I'm not a professional like mountaineer as such, right? And I was also like late into in my 30s too. So I didn't realize like, I didn't think I had a career in mountaineering. But then, and I was thinking about like, should I do it or should I not do it? And then a month after that, while I was still like, hiking, I got a phone call that like my cousin Spandana, she committed suicide. We didn't realize what she was struggling with. She had some family issues. I mean, she couldn't fight through it, and then she decided like committing suicide was the only solution for her. She had a kid who was about 10 years old. I think that's around the same time, like, and I started thinking about like, again, the same guilt I had with my mom, I started having now. One with my mom was I didn't know any better to help her. So I couldn't help her, and she committed suicide. But with Spandana, I knew I could have helped her had I known what she was going through, and also felt like had I been more vocal about like my struggles and how I was able to overcome those and then come out of it, I felt like she could have also, she could have also fought through it, right?
Yeah.
So I think I felt like, I mean, not the best way to do things, but then again, like, I felt like she gave me a purpose as to like, when I go into the mountains, if I want to go into the mountains, I want to do it with the purpose of like, spreading the message around mental health. So I call this project, my project, like every year when I climb, I climb under the name Project Spandana. That's my cousin's name. It also means like when touching, right? Like, and Spandana also means, yeah. So yeah, I mean, when I go on expeditions, I talk about my struggles, and I talk about like and just because we go through a phase, like it doesn't mean that we don't deserve like a better phase tomorrow. We can come out of it if we act on it. And then I understand like a lot of Indians in general, and I struggle with mental health, but they don't take proper care of themselves.
There's a taboo surrounding it. Yeah, there's so much help. There's so many tools.
Yeah,
we need to talk about it. Yeah.
So there's also like a lot of stigma around like sharing these things. And I felt like, I mean, if an athlete like me who's been doing these, like, I would say at that point, like, whatever I was doing was more like pioneering for at least the Indian side of things, right? I felt like if I can push these boundaries and also like carry a message along with it, I'll serve the purpose. So yeah, since 2023, I've been doing a lot of my expeditions under the name Project Spandana to like spread the message. And then to just tell people like, you can use that struggle to do harder things, in life. Yeah.
Beautiful. More power to you. Yeah. Keep talking about it. And
Thank you.
I know like you're the first Indian to ski to the South Pole. How do you deal with silence? You've mentioned that word somewhere in one of your blogs. How do you deal with silence?
So, it came easy. I would say that probably was like my most favorite part of it too. People usually think there is something called solitude, there is loneliness. Some have asked me, how did you deal with your loneliness, right? And I didn't think it was like loneliness as much, right? Some, having gone through my own struggles with mental health, I if I share this with, I've talked about this with my friends too. When I tell them that I'm an introvert, they don't believe me, because they're like, dude, you always chat. But I'm also like, I'm only like out meeting people and then talking to them when I want to come out and do these social activities.
Right.
The other 90% of the time, I'm living in my own shell and just doing my own thing. So
Yeah.
I am being lonely, or I am being, I'm enjoying my my
Solitude.
solitude. Yeah. So and I think I've dealt with that like a lot in the last like 10 years, I would say. That when it came to being in Antarctica, it was beautiful in like so many ways. Like, one, I was like grateful for having the opportunity to like do something as beautiful as that, where I had no distractions. And then, it's in general too. I had everything I needed for 52 days, or 54 days at that point. And then I know that there's no animals around there. I mean, it's cold. Like, there are other factors. Like, there's cold, there's wind. It's just brutal. And long days for sure. There's so many other factors to it. But then solitude is one thing that I really enjoyed. Like, I felt like I was just back, home in the comfort of like, living that like the solitude life back home in San Francisco or elsewhere. It's just that I was in Antarctica, just going through a journey, which is, I would say, the culmination of like everything that I've done in the last 10, 15 years, right? I thought it was more like a celebration, and I treated that as a celebration. It gave me an opportunity to like, this is how I look at it, right? It's like, I've traveled to like almost like 48, 50 countries and multiple times, right? Over like 70, 80 trips. And I've run races in beautiful parts of the world. I've climbed mountains in different parts of the world. Have a beautiful family, and a friends and family who've done everything they could to like, in 2 months time, it's almost like a record time, they put me in Antarctica just because I wanted to do it, right? There's very few people who I know people who are struggling to like fundraise to like do these kind of events, right? So there was so much to be grateful for, right? And so my only duty was to like, just do what I signed up for. And then, I was doing it for like multiple reasons too. I would think of, that's sort, I would spend almost like 11, 12 hours a day skiing. And then when I'm skiing, I'm thinking about like every instance in life. I would think about like the earliest memory that I have from childhood to like, to that day, right? Some days it's like really good, because you think about the good things. Some days you think about things that you could have done better, with respect to my mom or with respect to like in Spandana and such. So they get emotional. But then I was happy just being with myself, in a place where I didn't have to worry about anything else except for the weather factors.
I'm sure you had to you had to solve a lot of problems.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something you go on a 54 journey, a 54, 55-day journey. And there's so many small parts, right? You only have like one shoe, you only have like two underwear, you only have like, one t-shirt on you. So there's always things that are breaking that you need to keep fixing. So it's never, it's always entertaining that way.
Beautiful. You also talk about resilience, mental health and resilience. Tell me about it. How do you, what's your message there? Yeah.
I feel like, life hasn't been easy. I would say that, like, since my mom passed away, it wasn't easy. There's a lot of ups and downs. But then, I also look at these life experiences that I've dealt with in the same time that have made me, to rather than give up in life, it has taught me to like fight through. But that's where I would call like my resilience comes in, as in like, that's what life has taught me. Every time I felt like, I'm at the bottom, there's no rising up from here. I found a motivation, I found an inspiration, and I fought through it, to rise up, to do the things that I wanted to do. I think that's where my resilience comes in. as in that's what life has taught me to like, or at least the mountaineering in general, right? There's so many trips on where I learned more things when I failed than on trips that you like to succeed and go to the summit, right? When you go and succeed to the summit, you don't think about what could have, how you could have done it differently, or you think about it, but they're not, you don't push yourself, or you don't question yourself to the point when you don't succeed, right? So a lot of these falls at the very beginning of life, when I'm like just picking up mountaineering, I've have like inculcated that spirit of like not giving up, be it like running marathons with like cramps, and also like some of my own doings, like I would get drunk and like run a marathon. I would be drinking till 4 o'clock and like just be at the starting line at 7 o'clock and run a 4-hour marathon, and then like just going through
that is endurance. Way to go.
And also like you think, I mean, there's no reason for me to run these races, but then I'm also like running these races. You're like,
there's also no reason for you to drink so much.
Yeah, I mean, besides being youthful, I guess, and stupid. You feel like you only have one life, and you got to make most of it. This is like Kentucky, like Derby. So they have a marathon in Kentucky Derby.
There you go. No, I'm with you.
Yeah. I went to school in Louisville, Kentucky. So I would like go back home once in a while. So when I'm there, I also want to spend time with my friends, and also want to like do the things that I want to do. So yeah. So I think just running teaches you that thing, like to not to give up, or like no matter what the instances are. Okay. And then similar, even in life too. I was able to, every time I felt like I felt defeated, I always look back at my marathons and my mountaineering journey in general to like find that inspiration to like pull myself up again and like not give up on myself. And then now when I go to Polar, like I can look back at like my running, my mountaineering, and then my mental health journey has been a huge part of like saying that you can do anything, just put your mind to it and like keep going. Now when I'm like, I'm in a different phase right now where I'm trying to like, I've quit my job to like go to South Pole, because it requires me to like take about 90 days off, about 60 days, 65, 70 days off. And I've decided to like go on this journey of like, educating people to climb mountains a safe way. It's been a struggle. I question it every day. I'm like, I can just go back to the luxury life of like working a 9-to-5 job. But again, like every single morning there is this like self-talk, right? You've dealt harder things. You're the one who who run those marathons. You're the one who did the mountaineering. You're the one who overcame mental health. You're the one who did the polar extreme. Like, you got it in you, right? They're like, don't give up on it. So you build on it. It's not one thing. It's not one incident, right? Every incident, when you like look back at it, you have the time to introspect. And you have to pause. It's like the word pause keeps coming up a lot these days, as in like you just can't just keep doing things. You have to like pause from time to time to realize like how far you've come, right? And what made it possible. And when you think about those things, it puts life in perspective. So whatever, like wherever instance you are, if you want to look for inspiration, don't look anywhere else. You can all just look back at your life and where you come from and where you are today. That should motivate a lot of people to like to rise up and to fight back. Yeah. So I that's my journey, and that's just how my journey has been.
What's your favorite drink?
It changed.
It depends on the people that you're hanging out with.
Absolutely. I mean, now it's so I didn't drink until I was 26, right? So a lot of the phases I'm talking about, like when I'm running marathons, and then drinking, it all came at the point where I'm, somebody introduced me to like drinking at the point when I also started running marathons. So they went, so they went together for a little distance, like for a little while. Not that, I didn't drink in college or even for masters and all such, right? When you get into a job, when you feel like you have a little bit more money to, to spend, it got into those things. But I used to enjoy like whiskey, like the single malts are all like my favorites. But I've also like quit drinking in the last 10 years. Now it's mostly like when I go meet my friends, I go from like 0 to 100 again, like not drinking for like 4 months. And then there would be a night when I'm like going from like 8 o'clock to like 5 o'clock in the morning, just because I want to like spend the time with them, and then also like be foolish with them, stupid with them, and just do silly things.
All the important things in life.
Yeah. You got to have the full spectrum in life. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, you've already touched. I have two more questions. Okay, you already touched parts of it. How do you deal with failure?
Good question. It's hard. I'll give you a beautiful story. And this is like one of my favorite stories, right? The first time I was trying to climb Rainier, and I feel like a lot of my, you know, I feel like that story has. I think about it like almost every month. I watch the movie Eat, Pray, Love almost every month because it puts a lot of things in perspective. And similar for me was my Rainier journey. So my friends have done, my friends whom I was following have done Rainier, but then I've never believed in like doing things with guides. I also want to like learn and do things my way. And so I was going with some friends to like climb Rainier. So the Sunday before that, I ran a 50K. And then on that Friday, we drove, I ran a 50K. And then 4 days after, we drove overnight to Yosemite, hiked up Half Dome, and then we come back down, and then we drove all night long to Rainier to climb Rainier. And when I climbed Rainier, when I was climbing Rainier, when I got actually to the parking lot, I realized that I didn't bring my water bottles, which are essential for like, hydration is essential. And this is like the first year of like me climbing big mountains, right? And then I didn't know what to do, and I had like two like a very foldable flasks that I could use for water. So I used them. But then halfway up the mountain, I realized that the water was frozen in those, so I can't drink them anymore. So it was a lot slower than my two friends who already been up to Muir Hut, and we're already camping over there, right? So by the time I got to the hut, it was late in the night. By the time I got there, those two friends already went to bed. I didn't know how to. I bought a brand new stove, and I bought my food. I was eating the dehydrated food for the first time. I didn't know how to eat it. I didn't know how to boil. I didn't realize that I need to boil water before I can pour it in. So it was a semi-cooked food, so I didn't eat food that night. I did all the disastrous things that could possibly go wrong. Didn't eat and didn't drink. I had like a 2 or 3 the peanut butter jelly sandwiches which I packed like for my breakfast, and I had to eat those. So next morning, obviously, when I was like trying to climb up, again the water bottle is froze, and that's the only things I have. And I was on a rope team, and I was slowing up the rope team. This was on Rainier. We went all the way up to like the Disappointment Clever, which is like about, I would say about like 12,300, 12,400. I was walking, but I was slow. And then at that point, I realized that I was slowing down the 3 people ahead of me too, because we were on a rope team. I asked them to like just leave me on the mountain and just go. This is one of those like and the stupidest things that I've done. And then they're like, we can't leave you on the mountain because I mean it's not acceptable. If me and my friends would never be allowed to like climb back up on Rainier if the rangers saw that thing. And then it's dangerous situation too because the glacier. I was just foolish, right? I mean, it's my first year of mountaineering. And then so I told them like, you know what, I'm just gonna sit over here at the Disappointment Clever at like 12,300 feet while you guys go to the summit and come back down. I'll wait for you. Because I mean, these 3 guys they would do odd jobs. They were passionate about mountaineering. They would do odd jobs to make, and like to bring in the funds to like go climb these mountains. I didn't want them to like turn back because of me. So I foolishly said, I'll stay back over here. You guys go up to the summit and come back. That way I don't have to like step onto the glacier. Anyway, long story short, so they went ahead and I decided to stay back over there, and I realized that it was freezing. When you're moving on a mountain, it's warm, but then when you're sitting over there doing nothing, it freezes, right? So I decided I'm just going to keep walking up and down, right? So like the Disappointment Clever is one of the sections where they say it's one of the hardest sections. So in total, I climbed up and down like 5 times, right? No water, no food, nothing. But then I just kept going up and down, up and down, up and down. So in total, I did more mileage or more elevation gain than my friends did onto the summit of Rainier.
Yeah.
But what I took from it is like, you have it in you to like do harder things, right? So I think that's the lesson I carry with myself like everywhere when I face failure, right? I try to look for the positivities in them and see how I could use those in my other parts of life, right? So that again, is an incident where it taught me like not to give up, like just to do something to keep myself warm. And then while doing that, it also gave me this confidence that even it was it was a failure when you look at it, right? It was one of my, and Mount Rainier is like one of the is the biggest climb that you can do in the lower 48 too, right? Like it's a solid glacier hike. So it gave me a lot of confidence that you can do harder things, and also like it also like put things in perspective, as in like when I'm looking back at it, I'm looking at failure, and I know I realized that all the things that I need to work on, like hydration, food, and everything else that went wrong. But then on the other side, I also realized that my endurance or my strength was something that
You have so much more in you.
Yeah, a huge positive for me. So that's how I deal with it. I just pause again. Same thing. I get everything that went wrong, and I get everything that went right. And to not give up. I think just not to give up, and like keep working on yourself. Slowly making small changes to. Is how I correct my failure.
Very good. Yeah. What does courage mean to you, Satish?
Oh wow. Okay. Courage for me is to like face my own fears. Like today, after it, nothing like I feel like when I think about the things that I've done, there were two incidences when in all my years of there were two incidences. One in the pandemic in 2022, when I was questioning why even live this life, right? To step away from that to like find a purpose in life, it took me courage to get there.
Way to go.
Yeah. That for me is courage to like face your own fears. Those were my fears back then. And then the other time I would say is like an Annapurna, as an example. Like that was the year that I climbed Annapurna was like one of the most like I would say disastrous, and ever since then the climbing on Annapurna has changed drastically. Again, courage. Basically it means like overcoming your fears, and that's another mountain that has taught me real close what fear and courage could be. The climbing the mountain was fear, and then overcoming that challenge. I was snow blinded on the way from the summit back, I dealt with some problems with my Sherpa. I was helping him to come back down. He climbed it without oxygen, so I had to make sure that he was safe all the way back. And then in the process, I was like, I was frustrated on a few things, and I removed my glasses a few times, and I got snowblind when I got to my tent. Next morning when I woke up, I asked for a rescue. No, my guide asked for a rescue, and then they didn't want to do a rescue. So Annapurna is one of the deadliest mountains on the planet. It is the deadliest mountain on the planet. So climbing up is the hardest part, but also climbing down on any mountain is the hardest part. So I climbed the section between like Camp 3 and Camp 2 with almost like 70% eyesight. And then and then I also was I witnessed like a couple of accidents that happened on the mountain. So that was one place where I thought I might die. I just submitted to the mountain while I was there, to like step out of there and to like to climb all the way back to base camp on my own feet. That was courage. I mean, when I look at the examples of like what courage actually means, I would say those two incidences come to my mind. And also like in terms of like Project Spandana, I used to do things that someone who looks like me, to be to places and do things that no one who looks like me have been or have done before, to inspire a whole generation.
Way to go, Satish. Fantastic. Thanks for your time. Thanks for sharing your experiences.
Yeah, my pleasure.
With everything that you plan on doing, more power to you in terms of like spreading the message about tools that are available to support people dealing with mental health. Yeah, I will. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've taken a few notes here as well. Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
What if I were to ask you, like, what would be one of the things that you took from this conversation?
I've had few scary experiences, Satish, and yeah, you are an inspiration in terms of sharing your dark times, and yet you've seen hope.
Okay.
So you've you've dealt with trauma within family. I mean, losing a mom and losing your cousin, and whatever you went through COVID times, but yet you have found a purpose. And it looks like you are single. You found. I mean, you have a lot of guts that you quit the job and you're changing your course, which is amazing, right? Who gets to do
Hard.
that? Right? Yeah, it's not easy. Yeah, but yeah. But you have
For all the reasons you just mentioned,
you've done everything right. Keep on it.
Yeah.
Like very similar to solving problems while skiing to South Pole. You'll keep solving problems. That's it. Yeah, it's one day at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Cool.
Good luck. Okay,
Thank you
we'll
so
be
much.
in touch.
Yeah. Ciao.
Cheers. Bye bye. Yeah.